Welcome back to the Winning Plays podcast. Rich Levine and Brian Robb here as Jeff Teague plays for an NBA title. The long off season continues for the Boston Celtics. The organization, B-Rob, I think is spread out all over the place right now. We got Jason Tatum, Ime Udoka, I believe Brad Stevens in Vegas
Oh,
this week with the crew.
that's a winning plays exclusive, I think.
Have you heard that?
I have not heard that, but that makes sense. Like, because Udoka is not technically an assistant coach. If you look at the roster and the list of coaches, there's only three assistant coaches, but I assume there's like 15 or 20 assistant coaches there.
So I was surprised by that as well because I didn't think that Ime was on the coaching staff this year either. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But Brad Stevens is there with the head coach and the most important player, Jason Tatum. I think Jaylen was filming something for Jimmy Kimmel. I think.
Yes, he was out in LA, I believe, recently, and yeah, so it'll be. So do we think Brad? Like, do you think Brad's just there to help out? I mean, he and Pop are close. So, but I imagine there's a lot of unnamed coaches that are, or obviously now executives are in the building there helping out with things behind the scenes in terms, especially with the select team there as well.
It probably wouldn't hurt on a few different levels for Brad Stevens to be there. It doesn't hurt the Team USA. It doesn't hurt Brad standing with some of the other great players in this league. Doesn't hurt the Celtics. And then I think there's a big draft workout in Minnesota this weekend where some folks might be there.
Okay.
It's sort of there's not too much draft prep that you got to worry about.
Unearth the number 47 overall picks. Like, you have to dive deep there and listen. There have been some gems that come in out of that range, and Yamadar might be the next one. We'll see on his front. We'll save him for later in the podcast. But let's start here. I guess let's start in the moment here. Jason Tatum on Team USA spoke for the first time on Wednesday, Rich, about the first time we've seen him since all these changes happened. But of course, he's excited to play with Bradley Beal. He's excited to play with Damian Lillard of Team USA, and which had turned out to be a pretty solid roster there with Durant and company also in place. And so for you, seeing Tatum heading into the Team USA, being the first Celtics since Larry Bird to play for Team USA at the Olympics, which is kind of
didn't we decide that he might actually be the first Celtics ever?
That's true.
Celtic ever, because Larry was retired.
Right.
Or when did he officially retire? I guess we have to look that up, whether he announced his retirement before or after Barcelona. I think it was probably before.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go to the record book for that one. But it is, I mean, for all intents and purposes, maybe Jason is the first Celtic taking place here. He's in training camp with Team USA for the next couple weeks before they head off to Tokyo. So for you, Rich, like, what is just we I think we debated whether it's a good thing he's there. I think now, without question, after all these changes, I think it's very good that he's there, especially when you look at the list of players who are also there. Beal's an obvious choice. Lillard's an obvious choice. I think another sneaky choice, Zach LaVine with Team USA, who is also coming into the final year of his deal with Chicago on a team that were markedly underachieved last year once they made the big trade for Vucevic. So what are you looking for out of Tatum with Team USA, both from a playing standpoint and from a recruitment standpoint?
Well, first and foremost, let's avoid any I don't even want to say serious injury. Let's avoid any injury altogether, because that is, if there's any negative, there's anything that where you say, okay, I wish he wasn't there. And I'm glad you said that you're happy to see him there now, because I was very anti-Tatum playing in the Olympics. And I'm still probably a little closer to a negative than a positive. But when those first videos came across, when those clips were posted of him working out with the team and being in Vegas, I did feel good. I enjoyed seeing him there. Like, it's cool to see him on that stage. It's cool to see him among those players and knowing, not only is he there, he belongs, and he will be one of their best players on an all-star team representing the country. So that's cool to see. First and foremost, let's stay healthy. Second of all, let's just hope that him and Bradley, they finally get this chance to play together, and they love it so much that maybe Bradley Beal goes into Anthony Davis mode. Tell every other team in the league, don't trade for me because I'm not re-signing.
Right.
If you trade for me, you're getting a year, you're getting a half the season, and then they'll work out a way to because it's possible to not give up Jaylen and sign a max player in 2 years, right?
Yes, or depending on what you do this summer, you could technically do it next summer when
So
Beal
yeah,
has the ability to opt out. So it would involve
you
no
don't re-sign
extensions.
Marcus.
You
You
don't
don't
re-sign
re-sign
Marcus. You
Marcus.
don't extend Robb.
You trade Evan
You
Fournier after you
yeah,
sign.
exactly. You trade Evan or you shine him to like a 1-and-1 with an option or something like that, depending. Which I think honestly could be in play depending on what his market is.
Sure.
Since there aren't a lot of teams with cap space out there. And yeah, and then you already traded away that first round pick, so you don't have to worry about having extra money in the books there. And then you have other small salaries on the roster that you should be able to keep and fit him in or just be easily movable. So
that's what I'm hoping for. That this is step one, and down the line, that all happening, and Bradley Beal, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum all wearing green.
So you feel like that's plan A at this point. If you're Brad Stevens looking at where you want to get to in a year right now, like is that the path you want to get to first and foremost?
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable. I have to think about it a little bit more before I declare it plan A, but it is a plan, whether it's A, B, or C, that I will be pretty comfortable with and pretty content with, considering where the Celtics are right now. I think if you can get to that plane in the space-time continuum, that's a victory for Brad Stevens in his first, season or two in the lead chair.
Well, here's my question for you on that front then. Would you rather go after Beal and you have with trade assets this year, assuming again he's pulling the Anthony Davis power play and saying, unless you're the Celtics are a team that doesn't have a lot to trade for me, don't trade for me. You could get him. You're gonna have to give a lot of draft picks to get him, and Al Horford matching salary and a bunch of other solid stuff. But then you might be able to keep some other stuff around him in terms of your supporting cast in that scenario, or would you rather keep the picks and have that cap slot open in free agency, knowing that you're going to lose more of your role players to go that route?
Yeah, and I guess that's one sort of, I don't want to say a downside, but one of the interesting caveats of the Celtics not having I mean, 40s is a pick, like you said. Plenty of good players have been drafted. Not exactly a real draft pick. It's not going to be you're not going to be able to.
You could sell that for $4 million. That's easy cash in that pick.
We're not going to learn much about Brad Stevens' drafting skills. I think from this summer. Either way, even if he somehow hits it out of the park, you need a bigger sample size, and especially one of those like in the mid-teens, right? That's a hard draft pick, because I think
Brad Stevens has seen too many. Brad Stevens has seen too many of those guys the last few years. I think that was the impression I got of that being his first move.
Right, and it was a great move. You have too much on your plate. Just take the draft out of play. Just like one less thing to worry about.
I didn't think about that.
But yeah, so I'm thinking like, because when you get those three together, if you can get those three together, like that, you're in a situation where you need to find some cheap young talent to fill in the gaps. Yes. And you would get that by getting lucky or making a few good draft picks. Like that would be a place to do it. So if you're giving away all those draft picks, it's a bit slim pickings. But then you're also in a situation where those veterans are going to be wanting a piece of that team. People can say what they want about Boston, but if you can if you're in a position to potentially win a title, people forget about anything real fast. Like you go to PJ Tucker goes to Milwaukee, like granted that wasn't his decision, but it won't be an issue. You'll be able to find some veterans to fill in those gaps. I guess it would be better if you have some homegrown talent, because then you can be in a situation where the Celtics were not so long ago, where like you're contending and rebuilding at the same time potentially. Yeah. Maybe we'll never see that again. It was such a sort of a perfect storm of a whole bunch of things, but yeah, I'd give up the picks, I think.
Yeah,
as I've spoken in circles for a little bit.
It's a tough. I don't think
that's the move.
Yeah, I don't think it's an obvious choice, but I do think that ultimately, when you're talking about your window, and Beal is not, he's not old, but he's 28, 29. So you want to, that prime is not going to last forever for him. So if you don't have the necessary secondary pieces around him, that might not be enough. And so it is But it is funny. We heard from Beal yesterday as well, with Team USA along with Tatum, and I just appreciated Beal's response when he was just asked about, our guys being together at Team USA, are guys going to talk about teaming up in the future? Like, what do you think? And he's like, and he starts his quote by saying, "I don't know, probably a lot," like, which is, and then he goes on to say, the focus is on the gold medal, and it depends on things, but it's, there's nothing to hide here anymore for him. This is like, I think his future is clear. Damian Lillard's the other like wild card. We'll talk about him in a second, and a couple other guys who are playing on this team. I mean, you probably, how bummed is Kevin Love that Kemba Walker got traded to OKC instead of Cleveland for the to get him, to rescue him from there after being tried to move for years and years. But it's
yeah, but they'll have plenty of time to talk about everything. These guys are going to be spending a lot of time with each other for the next few months, so you can focus all you want on the gold medal. There's going to be plenty of time to talk about what are we going to do. What's our potential futures together? Do we want to have a future together? And again, that's when you're actually out there playing in a non-all-star game, right? When you're actually competing, and we can say the highest level because some of these teams are pretty damn good around the world. On the same squad, you can really grow to enjoy playing alongside someone, and for better or worse, I think it's better. The players have so much of the power in this league that if they find some basketball partners that they want to spend the rest of their careers with, go for it. Make it happen. And we obviously know about Tatum and Beal and what they've meant to each other over the years, and to have a chance to do that together in Japan, I think it's going to be hard for them to do that, and not to continue to come home and not continue thinking about the potential to actually play together.
So when those guys are having that conversation, though, in your mind, is it clear cut when they're like, okay, if we're going to get together here, whether it's next year, whenever we can do it, like,
here's how we'll do it.
Here's how we're doing. Or is it like, is Jaylen our third guy? Or do we want to think about, can we get another third guy that might have more appeal? Like, how do you think that's going to be a conversation or no?
I hope not.
Because Jaylen is good enough to be that. I mean, I guess that will tell you about what Tatum and Brown's relationship is.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in my perfect world, in my like romanticized version of the Jays, I don't like to think about like Tatum like talking shit behind Jaylen's back.
This isn't even talking shit. It's just
yeah.
Like,
but if you're talking, well, maybe right. And if talking about a different third, maybe they're talking about doing that in a different city. Like so.
Right.
I think Jaylen's here. Like Beal.
Well, I'm asking you about Lillard. I'm asking you about Lillard right now. It's pretty much what I'm asking about.
Okay. So the three of those guys talking.
Correct.
And potentially saying, hey, why don't the three of us get together? I would, and I think this is something we were going to talk about. I mean, Dame Lillard is a better player than Bradley Beal. I think I would rather team up those guys, Bradley Beal, than Dame Lillard. I think for the same reason that, like, I remember back in the day when, there was talk at one point about like Chris Paul and LeBron James like getting together, and it didn't work out because Chris Paul is too ball dominant to play with LeBron. Right. I think that Jason Tatum is your de facto point guard. I think for the most part, certainly when it matters most, and Dame is the one of, if not the best, fourth quarter players, certainly one of the best point guards. I think, I don't know. I don't think that either of them is better off playing off the ball in those situations, in crunch time. I don't know. That's just my thought. I think that Bradley Beal would be just a better fit, more used to playing off the ball with Tatum.
And so would you prefer Tatum, Brown, and Beal over Lillard, Tatum, Beal? And that's a real pie in the sky possibility.
So basically either Jaylen or Dame.
Correct.
To go with those other two. Honestly, I think, Dame's what? He's going to be 30 this summer?
I think he's going to be 31.
31 this summer?
I think so. And this is, again, and who knows, like we're looking, this is not a this summer thing. This is like halfway through next season or next offseason type
It's a this summer thing because we need
timeline.
things to talk about this summer.
Right, but yeah, this is true.
Yeah. So listen, so you got Beal 6'3", Lillard 6'2".
Your defense is really bad in the
Yeah,
backcourt there.
I like what Jaylen brings is sort of like the Swiss Army knife, like in that mix, a guy that will be able, and a guy whose game keeps on evolving, keeps on improving. So who knows what he's going to look like next year, the year after that. I think for the defensive versatility, I think just the way the game is going and the fact that just the age difference is pretty legit. I'm gonna go with Jaylen in that scenario.
Yeah, I think that's a fair, given where the league is and given what his salary is going to be the next 2 years compared to, Beal or Lillard, where he's making probably $15 to $20 million less with, close to the same level of production, or at least, far better production defensively. That's a fun thing to throw around from just a pie in the sky perspective. But with all these guys there in one place and knowing that Beal and Lillard are going to be two of the hottest names on the hot stove market all summer long. Like it's something to watch and something to consider.
And we can talk about, I'm sure we will, between now and the start of next season, that sort of some of the less than ideal aspects of where the Celtics stand right now. But the fact of having Jaylen on a less than a max and having Jason miss out on his All NBA nod, like that does give them some. It gives them some flexibility with two of the best young players. And hey, we don't even have to say young anymore. That gives them some flexibility with two of the best players in the NBA who are still getting better. So that's something to be positive about for sure.
And I mean, that brings us back to the big picture of the offseason. And Rich, I believe this is the first time we've talked on the podcast since Brad Stevens made his first move.
Yeah.
By the way, Rich got married and last week, so we have to give him the winning play. Look at that! You see the.
I don't know if this video will make it on to the to our new YouTube situation, but yeah.
But he's fresh off the honeymoon with the new fam. So it's
let me give a tip to everyone. If you're going to go on a honeymoon, you should go with 3 young children. You haven't honeymoon unless you have 3 kids under 6 years old and under. It really adds to the relaxation. Really adds to the time that you can spend with your partner. To like the conversation.
Imagine those romantic dinners are just must have been magical for you guys.
So we had we planned one date night that we found like a nanny in Hawaii to come to. We were staying in an Airbnb for the first part. We found a nanny and obviously we still had to bring the 8-month-old with us because she's not at a point to be there. So we get to the restaurant and she's a good baby. She does not cry a lot. She's not super finicky. This was the night that she decided to not give a shit. Like she was just crying. We ate dessert in the car. We had to get dessert. It was pretty uncomfortable for most of the time. They're mostly because of the other people that are in the restaurant too. Like that, I don't do well with that. Like if I think that we're those people that are annoying everyone else, like it makes me very uncomfortable. So you
just tell everyone, hey, this is our honeymoon night out. Like. We feel this is bad here, but you can't tell people that. Yeah, so you
can but it just creates more questions. Okay, why are you honeymooning with 3 children? Like what? So we're the modern family, is what I can tell people.
All right. Well,
anyways, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. If you're not married yet, have 3 children first, and then do it, and then go to on your honeymoon. You won't regret it.
All right, that's words of wisdom for Rich, fresh off the nuptials. But here. Let's get back to, I mean, the start of the offseason here was Brad Stevens coming out of the gate, moving Kemba Walker in a first-round pick for Al Horford to kind of set up that flexibility you just talked about, Rich, of being able to have options around Jaylen and Jason going forward for this team. We heard from Tatum for the first time talk about all these changes yesterday, and essentially it was a magical actually press conference moment. A reporter, Rich, asked Tatum about everything at the same time. Like, we're just thinking Danny, Brad moving up, Udoka getting hired, and Kemba trade. And Tatum,
were you a part of that? Were you?
Guys it was a big scrum. Yeah, it was a Zoom, and then Tatum proceeded to answer all of it in like 4 sentences. So that was really forthcoming. But he had an interesting line of saying change can be good sometimes, and obviously was bummed out for his buddy Kemba. but the writing was on the wall there. So I guess my only question about this move from your standpoint, are you happy to see it happened so quickly out of the gate, or would you have liked to see, again, if you're not going to, Kemba didn't have a trade market, if you will, but there was, you could
Well, it
have
looks like he
potentially
might
waited.
get flipped.
Right, exactly. Well, if the Thunder flip him and get some, I mean, they're going to have to.
Dude, if Presti is able to get a first round pick for taking Kemba and get a first round pick for getting rid of Kemba,
right.
I mean, clearly he's already established himself as the king of the first round pick,
Right.
but that is next level. And I don't know if that would just be a matter of, I mean, I guess the Celtics didn't want Kuzma. That it's just a matter of who you're dealing with, or did they want Kuzma?
Well, I mean, they clearly, I think they looked around at the options that they had and say, hey, we can do two things here. We can be patient, and maybe some other team comes knocking where we don't have to give up the number 16 overall pick. We give up a future first with him, and that hurts a little bit less. But that's a gamble especially when you want to have the flexibility to maneuver in the future. And then on top of that, you're like, okay, we also get Al back. So if we think Al makes Tatum and Brown happy to a degree, who knows how long he's going to be here, but that maybe softens the blow in the meantime. Like, I don't know. That's the way I'm looking at it now as the trade market rumbling start around Kemba. He's clearly going to go somewhere if he's not bought out, but it's the question is how long is it going to take and whether the Celtics, pulled the trigger too quickly, I guess.
Well, to answer your question, I'm happy with when it happened. I just think that, like, first of all, we spent, and not just us, I think most of the people who talk about the Celtics and talk about the NBA saying there's no, who's going to take Kemba? There's no, like, that's an untradeable contract. No one, like, they're going to be stuck with Kemba. So clearly that is not the case. So you got rid of Kemba, which was, regardless of how you did it, like you say, creating that flexibility. If we're talking about actually what it's going to take the window with the Jays and turn them into a contender again, getting rid of Kemba was 1A. It was 1. There wasn't even a 1B. 1A, 1B, 1C. Get rid of Kemba. Find someone to take Kemba. They did that. And I like the fact that, like, Brad Stevens could do that quickly and then just work with that reality, as opposed to, like, having to juggle and say, okay, maybe, having all these different versions of what the future is going to look like. Okay, what are we going to do if someone won't take him? What are we going to do if we get this for him? What are we going to do if we get that for him? So they figured it out. You have a few more pieces in place, and Brad is, again, understandably, you would think, a little bit overwhelmed just with all the responsibilities that he has right now. In terms of, again, he still hasn't even set the front office. Like, we don't, right. They don't have that hierarchy built. We don't know if they're going to hire someone else. We don't know if they're going to get rid of everyone that's been working under Danny for the last few years. Like, that's all still up in the air. So I think by ridding the team of Kemba's contract and the state of his knee and all that, doing it fast, it just, I think, will simplify a little bit of what we're going to see moving forward. And I think that's big. Even if maybe you could get, if you wait a little bit, you could have got like a slightly better deal or a slightly better player. I don't necessarily think they did the Horford deal because it would make the Jays happy.
No,
I don't think that was.
No, it was money motivated.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm cool with doing it now.
Yeah. It's funny you bring up we talked about this. I mean, Brad Stevens, all he has on his plate, and again, trying to establish some kind of hierarchy in the front office. It seems like that's starting to happen with the coaching staff. Obviously, they hired Ime Udoka a couple weeks ago.
Damon
Stoudemire joining the staff,
cool,
along with Will Hardy, who was assistant with Udoka in San Antonio, and is also, I believe, a Williams College alum, and a good basketball player for them in their D3 days. It seems like the assistant coaching staff pretty much under Brad is done for the most part. Joe Mazzulla, the only guy I've got confirmation on who is coming back, who is best known for being, I think, Romeo Langford's specialized in working out with him, and he did that ping pong paddle thing with Romeo to reshape the shooting form a couple years ago.
So the other assistants are all.
I believe, as far as I know, I think not all of them have confirmed it, but we know Jay Larranaga is moving on, Jamie Young is moving on, and I haven't heard of anyone else who is not moving on to this point. That's not to say that no one is coming back, but
Sure.
it sounds like it's not a full cleaning of the house, but pretty close to it, which is normal given the changing coaching staffs. But I was curious to see how that was going to play out, given the fact that, these guys, it's not like Brad was fired.
Right.
And so a lot of these guys now are left in kind of tough spots.
Yeah, no, and I think, like you said, I think that you can say the same for the front office.
Right.
I think.
Do you want to see that? Do you want the decision to be made, or would you guess a decision made before free agency? Because it's like, if you're going to make changes here, like you it's a pretty important time to do it. But if you feel comfortable with the group in place here, keep rolling with these guys, and then there's obviously plenty of respected voices in that room that Brad's worked with for years. So I'd imagine maybe it's only going to be bringing an extra voice into the room now, as opposed to changing the room completely.
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. Right, like on one hand, it would be wild to entrust. And again, we keep talking about the fact that the draft is not that big of a deal now anymore. Like you're drafting in the 40s, so it's not as you don't have to. There's not as much pressure on this pick, right? But it'd be weird to bestow the responsibility on the guys that are already there. It's okay, go find us a good draft pick. If you're good enough to be helping them find a draft pick, like, wouldn't you want them to stick around? Right. But yeah,
or make a big trade with Kemba Walker, and that helps shape your future. I mean, that might not that's a trade that you need to have everyone in place for, but that's a pretty important trade for your future.
Right. How complex? It wasn't the most complex trade, though. I will say, right?
That's true. Yeah.
That could be something that Brad could have kind of gone in on. I don't want to say totally on his own, but I think the coaching decision, that was Brad's decision. From what I heard, he was the only one in the interview room, for most of those. He interviewed
one-on-one and until the final interviews. That was all just him, it sounds like, from what I heard too.
Yeah. So when you consider that, then you can wonder about, what might. So do we think that he's going to potentially hire Landry Fields and then dismiss everyone else that's there? Probably not, but it would be interesting to see how that decision might,
how it would be accepted with people who've been there for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I don't know. I guess we'll wait and see. The only thing we know is that nothing has been set. That's one thing we say for sure. The front office is people just doing the same jobs they were doing before Danny left. But I don't think that that's going to be the case moving forward. At some point, something's going to happen, right?
Right.
You would think he's going to hire a GM.
You would think, yeah, because if he was going to name someone internally, you'd think it already happened.
Yeah, or I don't know. I mean, I guess it's possible that you could obviously talk about Zarin. He's been interviewing for over a decade and doing a pretty unbelievable job. So you could, but Brad could potentially be okay, I'd like to talk to Landry Fields more. I'd like to talk to someone else more, and just see where they're at. And then after those conversations, Brad could say, you know what, I don't think this is better than what we already have.
Right.
And you would hope that he would be open to making that sort of decision, but yeah, I guess we'll just wait and see. Because have you heard anything about GM interviews? I know there's been some unsubstantiated rumors about
the conversations. The Landry Fields rumors have been out there for months, and nothing really has come of them. But yeah, you're right. There's been no real clarity there. And Brad I believe he was asked about it at the Udoka press conference, and he again didn't really address it head on with anything substantial. So the clock's ticking here. He has a lot on his plate, but if you want to get, he said his first priority was hiring the coach. That's done. And so now
draft is relatively done.
Draft is relatively done. Took care of that. Get rid of this pick. And now again, a big free agency coming up. And so you have 2 or 3 weeks left before that. So if you're going to bring someone in for this offseason, I would think the time to do it would be now or in the next week at least. If you don't want to hire someone as your general manager the week of free agency, I think I don't think that's a great idea for planning purposes.
Right. And you would think he would want, even if it's a ridiculous pick, like you would think that he or she would want to be there on draft night.
Yes. I think that's a very fair assumption since there's so much. Again, the Celtics they might be making picks, but in terms of like lots of trades happen on draft night. And
sure, they could trade back in for all we know. Who knows? Sure. Yeah,
you trade back in, trade future picks with a salary or something like that on a draft night. Like that's all very much in play. So again, that is that's the last week of July, the last Thursday in July. Yeah, so we're coming up. We're 3 weeks from that today. So
shit, it's already
July.
Time is flying.
Time is flying. So again, it's been a fascinating offseason to this point, but there's still a lot of dominoes to fall right now, and we will see. And that might be the very next one way or another. Whether it's deciding that, I mean, what I kind of want to see is like, listen, this is these guys, what you have with, Brad's been working with the Celtics front office for years. If you go do this offseason with them and see what you guys can do together, and then maybe make an informed choice that way. Because I don't think bringing someone in this down to the wire, and given the impact that could have on the rest of the people in the front office, that it seems like if you're going to make a move like that, you probably should have made it by now.
Yeah, I don't think it's great. Obviously, it's a crazy offseason in general, but like, it does kind of suck that these guys that have been there for so long are still kind of being, I don't want to say strung along, but in the sense they are like clarity. They seem to be very much in the dark about their the future of their job. And again, like this was the most if not the most, I might well say one of the most stable situations. Like if you worked for the Celtics for the last decade, like you didn't have to deal with a lot of the bullshit that most people, if you're an executive or anyone in the front office of the NBA, like this happens every single year. Like there are guys whose lives get flipped upside down and at the drop of a hat, right? But if you were in Danny Ainge's regime, you were living pretty well. You didn't have to worry about a lot of that, and so. A lot of that just comes with the job, but for people that have done the job for as long as they have, let's figure it out.
So that's what we'll be keeping an eye on here in the next couple of weeks, as well as a lot of exhibition games coming up in Vegas. Rich, get ready. A lot of Team USA basketball and we'll see for all 9 guys that are available. I'm sure half the select team is going to be on the roster for these games.
I'm actually going to be there, by the way.
Oh. Terrible. Yeah, live reporting for any place.
I'm not going to be at Team USA. I'm going to watch the Big Three.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. When we also have to start planning our summer league podcast.
So that we'll have to talk about that. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. I think that the date change was tough. I'm going to see. I'll leave it open as a possibility, but listen, you get married and all of a sudden you can't go.
That's true. That's
not. Just
bring the 8-month-old. Bring the 8-month-old, and it'll be fine.
Well, if I can make it a family trip, then that would be the best opportunity. But I think I'm using my one summer weekend in Vegas this coming weekend. But we'll see. Well, I'm not even doing anything. It's like we're going to a party or anything. I'm going to sit in a random gym and watch Glenn Davis.
I mean, right? Yeah,
nothing like Scalabrine, but I'm here for it.
Must see TV. Is that going to be on? Do they still have a TV deal?
Yeah, it's on CBS.
CBS. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll get a live report from. I want the one-on-one with Glenn Davis about the stomping.
By the way, there are a lot of former Celtics.
Yeah, you can actually talk to 10 of them. Talk to 15 of them. We want full. I want 10 minutes of Glenn Davis. Period. Since he's live wire at this point.
I went to the combine last month, and like Von Wafer was there. Orion Green was there.
Orion Green. Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Dan Dickau hanging around somewhere? Is that
No, not Dan Dick. I mean, Scal was obviously there.
Scouts
One
over
of the
there.
he's one of the captains.
J.R. Bremer?
J.R. Bremer, no. But there's one other good former Celtic. I mean, good name.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a good. No, you can't count. Ryan Hollins was a Celtic.
Yeah, he
for a
was
second,
Celtic.
right?
Yeah. He played on. I think he was on that 2012 team.
Yeah, he was one of Doc's.
Doc's failed. Centers.
Deontay Christmas.
He's a really good dude. I was like, that was my guy in summer league back in the day.
Yeah, he was good. I don't know if he ultimately made the roster. These are just guys that were trying out.
Right. He was there. I think he got cut. But yeah, that's all right. Well, this is good. We're gonna hopefully have a lot of fresh nuggets from that crew.
Didn't the Celtics draft Al Thornton and trade him on draft night?
Is that Florida State?
Yeah, that guy.
I think he was on the Wizards. He might have drafted Wizards. Maybe that pick was
maybe they were thinking about drafting him or something.
Yeah.
Maybe he was one of those guys that, like how Glenn Davis was technically drafted by Seattle. But no, he was drafted by the Clippers. So I was wrong. Cool.
All right. Follow Rich at Rich_Levine. Follow me at Brian T. Robb and at Mass Live. Follow us both at Winning Plays Pod. All this is on Twitter. Rate, review, subscribe to the Winning Plays Pod. We'll be coming at you guys all summer long here. Now that we're back at full strength post honeymoon. And yeah, we'll be playing to dissect here, Rich. So it'll be a fun summer.
Yes, sir.